Good morning, everybody. All right, should we try it one more time? Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I want to welcome you on behalf of the Deming Institute and Iowa State University. It's been a terrific partnership, and we're looking forward to a weekend of fun and having a lot of learning, too. My name is Kevin Cahill. I'm Dr. Deming's grandson and also the executive director of the Deming Institute. I grew up with my grandfather and knew him very well growing up and had the opportunity to have him alive and present during the early stages of my business career. I knew him well enough to know that he would have appreciated and loved this conference and the theme, Quality as a Strategy for Success in Business and Education. He believed that he could inspire each and every person who attended his seminars, workshops, and conferences to make a positive difference. He believed he could get them to think differently, ask better questions, and seek new knowledge. And that these people, their organizations, and everyone around them would be successful if they did those three things. My grandfather lived through some of the most profound changes in history, changes that shaped his view of the world and his philosophy. He was born in 1900, saw the devastation created by World War I, and lived through the agony of the Depression in the 30s. When World War II broke out, he was one of the experts brought in to help aid the U.S. war effort at a time when it was critical to create new weapons and produce ones that worked better than those of the enemy. He had a tremendous impact on the engineers. How many engineers are in here? A lot of them. Tremendous impact on the engineers he worked with, and believed the U.S. was poised to create a world of high-quality goods after World War II. But the engineers who learned so well during the war were not always in charge afterwards. Top management instead focused on quantity, not quality. We were the only country in the world that could produce the needed goods. We had a captive audience. It did not matter how good or lousy the product, everything we made sold. My grandfather's ideas were forgotten in the United States. But in the 1950s, he was invited as a guest to a series of lectures and gave a series of lectures to the Japanese engineers. He was invited by Konichi Koenaga of the Japanese Union of Science and Engineers. Japan, of course, had been devastated in the aftermath of World War II, and they were looking to rebuild. And they looked towards the people who had helped the U.S. war effort become so successful. And he was one of them. So they asked him to help. He had learned his lesson from World War II. He had seen and experienced what happened when top management did not understand. So he insisted that top management, not just the engineers, they had to be there too, but that top management also be in attendance. And over a number of years, between 1950 and 1960, over 80% of the capital structure of Japan, 80% of the capital structure of Japan attended his seminars. In the next 20 years, as we all know, Japan went from rubble to becoming one of the most powerful economic engines in the world. In 1960, Emperor Hirohito awarded my grandfather the Second Order Medal of the Sacred Treasure and gave him a considerable amount of the credit for the Japanese economic miracle. But it wasn't until 1980 when a program aired in prime time on NBC, If Japan Can, Why Can't We?, that my grandfather's ideas were rediscovered in the United States. By that time, the world economy was very different than it had been in the immediate post-war era. And the fast-growing service industry was also now a major component. So at the age of 80, in 1980, he began a second career in the United States, one in which he worked virtually 7 days a week, not only to help save traditional companies such as General Motors, Ford, and Xerox, but to help hospitals, education, and the service industry. In those last 13 years of his life, his philosophy continued to evolve from his famous 14 points to the development of the system of profound knowledge, a more universal management approach that extended far beyond even the typical industrial companies. He's now considered one of the most influential people of the 20th century, and his ideas are used in all types of organizations. Deming was committed to helping people understand we all needed to work together as a system with the aim for everybody to win. To do that, we needed cooperation and transformation to a new style of management. We needed to think differently, ask better questions, and seek new knowledge. When we do, good things happen. We often try without consideration of the others. They all work together too, just like the system of profound knowledge, and are interrelated. And this weekend will help you see that. My grandfather and the Institute believe that these elements will open your eyes to a new way of thinking you may not have been exposed to yet. I challenge you over the next 2 days to live the Deming philosophy and view your organization and the world and your lives through a different lens. I promise you, you'll learn something new and exciting. The last challenge I make is that if you took a look at the schedule and said, I'm going to attend all business tracks, or you looked at it and said, I'm going to attend all education tracks, try something different. Think a little bit different. Take a chance and go, if you're planning on doing just all business, go to one of the education tracks. You're going to be exposed to something that you might never have thought about, and I promise you it'll be pertinent to what you're doing. And the same thing, if you're going to all education tracks, try one of the business tracks. You'll get something different that you didn't even expect. I also want to thank two people, Dick Steele, if you could raise your hand, and Jack Hillerick. Jack's in the back right there. For the students, I wanted to let you know, Jack and Dick are the ones who are providing the student scholarships. And if you have a chance, come up and say hello to them and thank them for that opportunity. It's a terrific, it's one of the big things for the Institute is to have students come in and have an opportunity to see what the Institute believes, what the ideas are about, and hopefully it'll set you down that new road towards transformation, towards looking at things differently than you ever did. I believe strongly this conference will serve you well. I also want to acknowledge a couple of other people, Dr. Deming's daughters, my mother, Diana Deming Cahill, and my aunt, Linda Deming Radcliffe in the back. Linda, can you raise your hand? And also, both of them on the Board of Trustees of the Deming Institute. And I also want to acknowledge my brother, who is right there. So thank you all very much.